Mark,
V.
what time is it? You think we would have had a handle on this yet?
1, 2, 3, go!
Go!
On 3 or before 3?
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Avinash.
Oh man, everything that he talked about today for me is so extremely tangible for any marketer out there today that's looking to do better. Anything.
Yeah.
The KPIs, the understanding of incrementality, the I came, I puked, I left. I absolutely love that line.
Yeah.
I wonder
Suck
if we can
less.
use that. Suck less. Yes. I just, we probably could have spent another hour just talking. And I think he touched on really important topics that we as marketers should care about a lot more and be a lot more diligent on and crafting our story internally. And the idea of incrementality, the claim that you have to revenue, be honest about it, man. Anyways, where do you want to start first? Because there's a lot that he shared that for me, I was just like a sucker for it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, I'll start with this. Greg Shelley from when we were working together, Canadian Tire. I remember in a meeting, he's like, "What about the incrementality?" And it was great because he kept asking the question. And so, Greg, if you're listening, I'll tag you in the post later. But I found the idea of incrementality strange at the time.
Right.
And Avinash kind of touched on this. I do think it's really important for us as a marketing community to understand what incrementality means. And so to say incrementality is one thing, but to really understand it and try and figure out a way to measure it is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And so Avinash had a few great examples of ways you can measure it. And some of them, depending on the size of the organization, it got me excited thinking about, being in an organization where you can measure this kind of stuff. And it can be more than just, it should be more than just reach or impressions or likes and all. That's not increment. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
So, but I think there's a level set on defining what it is that is important for every business. It might mean different things slightly for one company versus another, but it ultimately has to come down to, thinking about what we talked about as a repeating theme with a few of our guests. There's a profit motive and a business outcome that's really important. And there's an efficiency of the media delivery that you want to track. But having that pairing of efficiency and effectiveness towards an incremental business impact is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Even the idea of making it extremely easy for people to follow, like activity metrics versus outcome metrics, using his acquisition behavior outcomes kind of model, I think is just a different way of, and don't get me wrong here. When you think about, acquisition KPIs and whatnot, those are, fairly robust. Everyone's doing them today, but it's really kind of thinking how do you tell that story? Because and the byproduct, of this becomes incrementality. And I think that's where we get lost and we stick to a number like a ROAS number. It's well, this is our ROAS. It's plus 350%. So just give me more money. Yeah, but you didn't tell me what was the incremental of that the dollars I gave you actually was. And he said, at the end of the day, you're if you were to get 20%, what did he say? It was
Krishna and Jesus together.
Krishna and Jesus came together. It's it's not a thing. And I think at the end of the day, as marketers, we have to be a little more humble in saying what our activity and what our dollars actually do. But that comes back to just taking that one step forward to sucking less. So if you're doing last click attribution today, I don't care what attribution model you want to use, just use one. Use the one that comes. Just not that one.
Use the last click. If you're
exactly
using last click, use data driven.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the evolutionary step that we have to consistently take as we continue to progress to get to that point where he was talking about the marketing portfolio incrementality, where it's like advanced data models, it's,
Yeah.
machine learning, it's the media mix models on steroids, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
And yes, you probably need to be spending a lot of money to even think about going into that realm.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think it just kind of shows like it doesn't stop. The ladder of
Totally.
awesomeness, as you
Yeah.
referenced it, it's like
Yeah.
just keep going. There's always something different that you could be
Yeah.
doing.
Well, V, remember when we were having that conversation with Grace Kite about
Yeah.
budgeting, right? And I
Hmm.
feel like I had her um, flashing in my brain a few times, just thinking about, and I don't know enough about the difference between media mix modeling and econometrics.
Right.
I feel like they're same, but different. But
That's a good point.
you could probably hire people like her or whoever
Yeah.
the other equivalents are in North America that do that kind of thing
Yeah.
to help out a company. Um, just figure out, like, even once a year as you're approaching budgeting season, to figure out what's working, what's different, what's not,
Yeah.
where you should be putting media allocation, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and to Avinash's point, like, I think you've got an opportunity to be very thoughtful about where to put budget in that, depending on your objective and your goal, like, you need the two buckets. And so that's also a recurring theme with all the different
Totally.
people we've been interviewing. Like, you can't just put all your money into protecting my little slice of pie, because you also need to grow
Yeah.
that pie.
Yeah, and I love that he has also highlighted you talked about, how you often to measure, but like the channel style incrementality. So when you're just doing the channel lift studies and, the Facebooks and
Hmm.
in the Google, where you're just doing that, you're measuring that every 2 weeks, then cross stack incrementality, you're measuring that every quarter. Then
Hmm.
he suggests, a marketing portfolio incrementality. He said every 6 months. I would argue you could probably get away with doing it once a year.
Hmm.
Like you said, just kind of showcase, hey, as a marketing department, this is what we did. This is how we contributed to the
Hmm.
overall, revenue of the organization. Uh, but again, like I just, for me, he just made things extremely, extremely tangible, where
Totally.
you can build easy frameworks, easy for your team to follow, but also easy for you to relate to your CMO, or if you are a
Yeah.
CMO, you can ask your team to kind of approach it to you in these three core ideas, and then go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, when you're just talking about presenting it in core ideas, like the talking about the dashboards,
Yes.
and so I think he mentioned six metrics along those acquisition behavior and outcome idea. And but think about how many different KPI dashboards you and I have seen. Like, it's probably a misnomer to say key performance indicator,
Yeah.
because if you've got 50 metrics you're reporting on, and I've built dashboards like that.
I've
I mean,
built them. Yes.
like, it's probably a pretty good indicator. We don't know what we're looking for.
Exactly. And, he even brought up something like profitability as well. And if you remember
Right.
some of our earlier conversations, like, well, marketers don't care about profitability because it's us just driving traffic.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's the revenue number that you're chasing. But like, if you factor in your cost of marketing and then
Yeah.
you're looking at a profitability, and you should be looking at, or at least asking the questions
Yeah.
that can make you an effective marketer
Yeah.
as well, right?
Yeah. No, it's a good point. And like, you may not even have it.
No,
You might not be able to get it,
that's true.
depending on the company, but that you're asking for it, I think, is one of those things that, you know, going to his point about learning. I mean, ask for it, see what happens. And
Yeah.
then people might say, well, why do you need that? And then that's also an opportunity to learn. Like, you sit down with whoever it was, the CFO, let's say, who's
Yeah.
got those numbers, and they may say, well, why do you need it? Then you've got to figure out why you need it.
Yeah.
Because it's
That's
one thing
true.
to ask for, but like, to actually be able to explain the rationale behind it can also
Yeah.
help you learn and understand how to connect the marketing outcomes with business results.
No, agreed. And I know the idea of vanity metrics, I know we've talked about that
Yeah.
probably quite often. I think at the end of the day is just every organization has their own vanity metrics. I think
Hmm.
as marketers, it's our responsibility to call that out and say,
Hmm.
this metrics specifically, and let's just pick on likes for now. We have to stop reporting on this because that actually provides zero value.
Yeah.
And
Or yeah, you and I both were part of campaigns, V, where we're like, fuck, we got 1 million views.
yeah,
Awesome. I'm like,
great,
no, like we paid for it. Like, what did you
totally,
expect? Like, 2 cents a view. Yeah, that's what we kind of calculated. That's how much budget we needed to get 1 million views. Like, it's
exactly.
not it's not a miracle that we had 1 million.
Yeah, we spent $100,000 to get that. So there you go.
Right.
Congrats, 1 million
Yeah.
views.
So yeah, like we could have got 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. Like, but it's the outcome of that you were trying to look for. I'm interested in
Yeah,
that CLS too that he was talking about.
yeah.
Was it lift study, conversion
Channel
channel lift
lift
study?
study.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And a lot of the digital channels do that
Mm-hmm.
now. I would probably stay away from channels that can't provide that for you, because then that's where you run into the duplication in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, so then what did your channel actually drive? Uh, I want to think. I think it was Facebook that came up. You know what? I could be misrepresenting this, but for some reason in my mind, it's Facebook that came up with CLS first, or maybe it was
Yeah.
Google. I don't remember.
I remember. Well, I used it on Facebook first, or a
Me too.
version of it, and then I used it later for Google. I remember Google had changed the platform a little while back in terms of how you execute on some of these studies, and so it used to be like a minimum spend threshold, and
Yeah,
then eventually it got to
exactly.
the point where you could buy just a single question study,
Yeah,
like lift study,
yeah,
and then it was at a lower price point. The cost for that was a lower price point. You could add it on, whereas it used to just be based on your spend.
yeah.
But there's still a minimum media weight that I think there was an expectation you spent. Um,
Well, the
so
idea is, technically, if you have the luxury of extra budget, that's step one, is look at the channels that you use and try to conduct some CLS in that, and
yeah,
allocate some of that extra budget that you have, that 5%, like Avinash suggested, and just, or sorry, he suggested 10% of
yeah,
play money, wasn't it? I think it was.
yeah,
Yeah. But anyways, it's allocated to some of those channel lift studies. So it kind of gives
yeah,
you a more holistic understanding of the incrementality coming from your
mm-hmm,
channel silos,
mm-hmm,
right? And take that first step and seeing, okay,
yeah,
well, you know what? I'm seeing that, every time I do something on Facebook,
yeah,
I'm getting an incremental value of 5%.
totally,
Okay. Noted.
yeah. But to your point too, like the 5, 10%, whatever the number is, like I think there is also like you may not be able to measure things exactly, but that's also the freedom you're giving yourself when you say like there's this new channel, let's say TikTok for now,
Yeah,
or voice search was the thing a while back, or maybe the metaverse, or I don't know. Maybe print is unique for you. Like who
doesn't
knows?
matter.
Like
Yeah,
whatever the channel is, like there's some amount of that you I think is interesting because it gives you freedom to experiment, try things out,
exactly.
add mediums into your mix that you wouldn't have ever tried before, and be more creative potentially than you ever were before.
Exactly.
It's cool. I like that idea about having a internal skunk works in a way.
Yeah. He referenced it as more as like giving marketers an opportunity to kind of spread their wings.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to talk about brand marketers, you want to talk about performance marketers, doesn't matter. We all naturally are curious. So there's things that we could constantly be doing differently in our day-to-day operation. So giving that additional budget will really help us
Sure.
marketers stretch ourselves, right? And I think that's important. But obviously, this large organizations probably have more flexibility here to do something like that than maybe larger than smaller ones, where you're fighting for budget because it's
Sure.
like is directly impacting their ability to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that, but it's yeah, I don't know, it was just a real great healthy conversation today, and I genuinely I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I did too. Yeah. I mean, we covered a lot of ground when you think about it. Like, I'm just looking at my notes here. But funnel metrics we were talking about.
Oh yeah, hates the funnel, great, so do we.
I, it's funny too. Like, I think there's some amount of that um, honestly, where it's people have done it that way, and so people it is familiar across an industry. It's a benchmark.
Yeah.
Um, it's a common framework, so people can have a conversation that is
Around it.
familiar, whether you're in sales or marketing or finance or CEO or whoever. You say the funnel, and you're like, "Hey, I get it." You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So I think there's some amount of that. If you're looking at changing a funnel, you could either like there's a whole bunch of ways you could change that perception of why are we doing it and all that kind of stuff. Maybe part of it is also showing like the outcome, like the acquisition behavior outcome model
Yeah.
in parallel to that. You can soft sell it that way just to say, here's a different
So
model.
here you go. Yeah.
Here's why I think this is better. I'm going to track both for a period of time,
Yeah.
and then eventually work into the one that is more productive for us in managing
Who
the media.
who was our guest that was, was talking about the fun? I was like, oh, look, I
Oh,
am walking through
Jenny,
conversion now.
Jenny, it's like
Was it?
going
Oh, it was
through a
Jen.
hallway.
Yeah,
Jenny Romanek going through the hallway. Oh, there's the awareness store. No, I'm gonna go past that one. I'm into consideration. I'm gonna see where the consideration door is in the
exactly.
hallway. Yeah,
That's what was when he was talking about fun. That's where my mind went. It's like, do,
yeah,
do, 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 do.
yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
it was such a good conversation.
Yeah, genuinely, Avinash, if you're hearing the post pod here, thank you once again. It was an incredible conversation. We really appreciated the time, and I know our listeners will get a lot out of this.
Yeah. Okay, V.
All right, my friend.
Adieu.
Until next time.
Take it easy.
Adieu.